HaKadosh Boker or Masechet Gittin Daf Lamed Amud Aleph 30a says the Mishnah, Hamalve Maot et HaKohen vet HaLevi v'te'ani v'yot mafrish alehem mechelkan. Imagine a person is going to come and he's going to separate Trumot u'Masorot and everything, right? He's going to take them, right, for himself because of a halva'ah that he already has to the Kohen, to the Levi, or to the Ani. So imagine, a Kohen owes me money. I separate the Truma Gdula, and I keep it for myself. The Levi owes me money. I'm going to separate the Masechet Rishon and keep it for myself. The Ani owes me money. I'm going to separate, but then I keep it for myself. Why? I'm deducting it from the loan, from the debt. 1 second. Yeah. Mafrish alehen becheskat shehen kayamim. You could separate it on the chazakah that they're alive. We're not going to suspect Shema Meta Kohen or Levi or Shirni. We're not going to suspect that maybe the Kohen or the Levi dies or the Ani becomes a rich person. We're not going to suspect that because we're going to say they have cheskat chayim. Next case, Metu. What happens if Be'emet, right? They did die. So tzarich litol reshum yerushim. He has to actually take permission from the inheritors. Imilvan bifne betin, but if he lent the money in front of betin, so then you don't have to take the reshut from the yerushim, because then the koach of bedin is to take it out of them. So therefore, basically what he's doing is that he's taking like the debt. It's le convienes, it says in Spanish, right? I mean, it's good for him, no? He's taking the debt and he's paying himself off, right? So it does work, right? But he's allowed to give to whichever Kohen or Levi that he wants, right? But if it's done in betin, he doesn't have to ask permission. If it's not done in betin, then he has permission from the inheritors. Says the Gemara, how could it be that he could come and take it? It didn't come to their hands. Okay. Meaning, I would have thought that it first has to get to their hands, and then he could take it back. Amar Rav says, we're talking about Kohanim and Levi, that they're already his friends. And therefore, he usually, right, that's what it says over here, he only gives it to them. So therefore, since he only gives it to them, all the other Kohanim and Levi, they're like Masechta, meaning they're not even going to bother. Sure. Imagine right now there's a Kohen and Levi that everyone knows, you always give it to this Kohen, or you always give it to, so nobody's going to bother coming to you to ask you, because you already know, right, that they do it. So Shmuel says, right, no, because once the other ones are Masechta, so Ki'ilu, they were Zocher immediately, even though it doesn't come into their hands. Shmuel answers, no, you know what you did? I came to Mordechai, and I tell Mordechai, pick it up, and you're now mizakeh to the Kohen. Or you're, even though Shulei Pakem Moshavo, like, or you're mizakeh to the Levi, or you're mizakeh to the Ani. Mizakeh lahem al yidei acherim, to other people. You could do that, you know that.
No, but what does that do? I don't understand. He didn't.
Ula Amar, so Shmuel says they're going to be mizakeh through somebody else. Ula Amar, Ula says, Hamani, who is this Mishnah, Rabbi Yosehi, the Amar, asu et mi she'eno zocheh kezocheh. Which means they made somebody, the Chachamim made a takana, that even though they didn't do a Maaseh Kinyan, it's Kilu they did a Maaseh Kinyan. And therefore here also the same thing. Chachamim made in their takana that the Kohen Levi and the Ani is Kilu, they were already Zocheh. And therefore the Balabait could collect it, and he's going to be to the Chuvah, the Netinah. Kilu that he already gave it. By the way, the exact same question applies to Maaseh. Can you deduct Maaseh before it's given? For example, let's say I have to pay you from the Bet Knesset $1,000. You come and you say, you know what? Don't give me $1,000. Give me 900. But you didn't get the 1,000 to give the 100. You're actually only taking the 9. Can you do that? So this is the exact same thing. So Kulu Kerab Lo Amri.
Are you allowed to? I'm only going to give you
Kerab Lo Amri. What? Kulu Kerab Lo Amri. Nobody says like Rab Makare Loktani, because it doesn't say we're talking about Makire Kiuna or Makire Levi and all those things. That you're the one that knows these things. Keshmuel Okamri. And nobody says like Shmuel, b'mezakeh lo ktani, because we're not talking about by mezakeh, right? The ki'ula nami lo amni, ki yechida lo mokminim, but nobody wanted to say like ula, because that's like shitat Rabbi Yosef, is a shitat yechida. It's only like a one person saying that. So they didn't like to say that either. So that's why they didn't do that. So Tanu Rabbanan, we learned to the Braita. Hamalveh ma'ot et hakohen et halevi et hanini liyot mafrish shalem mechelkan, mafrish shalem becheskat she'en kaimin. Right? So imagine right now, you come and you separate. Right? You come and you lend money to the Kohen Levi and the Ani in order to be mafrish shel chelkan. Okay? By the way, right? I don't know if you realize that was what was that was the agreement from the beginning. Okay.
So we knew.
So yeah. So he says, right? Mafri shalem becheskat shen kaimin. So you're going to separate in the chazakah that they're still alive. Uposek iman keshar azol. However, though they have to actually posek like the cheaper amount, which means the tumot masor like the cheap amount, which is the shara namuch. That means basically, let's say it becomes cheaper, so therefore you have to accept it as a cheaper amount. Ve'embo mishum ribit. There's no problem of ribit, right? That means there's no isur of interest, even though if it becomes more expensive, it comes out now that you're taking the fruits and everything, which are worth more than the actual halva. The end shvit mishabato. Shvit does not cut it off. That's going to be number 3. V'imbalach zor. And if you want to retract, eno chozer, you cannot retract. That's number 4. Number 5, nitiyashua balim. If the malve he gave up hope of collecting his debt, right? For example, let's say he comes and he did it on the shiud of 1 year in order to receive it that year, and he saw that all of a sudden now the entire field became flooded in, so now you can get paid back. And mafri shalem, you're not going to separate it again. The fishem mafri shalem ala lavud, because you're not going to separate to mot masrot on something which is already lost. So those are just like 5 different halachot that are brought down. So Amar Mor. So now let's explain each one of these. Amar Mor says, what does it mean that you're going to check according to the cheap value? Pshita, obviously. Hakamash Malan comes teach you, pasak, that means even though you didn't tell them what was the shiur, right, the sharazol, right, it's like you said it. And therefore you're allowed to collect the tumot masot according to that shar. Okay? There's no problem, meaning that if the price goes down, that's what we're talking about. Next, there's no problem of repeat. My tama, what's the reasoning? If right now, let's say you didn't have anything what to pay back. For example, as we already mentioned, all the fields, everything got flooded over, or whatever it is. So therefore, there's no problem. So the same thing. There's not going to be a problem, even if he's going to pay him back. There's not going to be a problem of ribit, right? Because he says that it's only going to be it's like a mecher. It's like okay, this is all in ribit halachot. Okay, and shvi meshamato. Shvi doesn't cut it off. The lokarina beluigos atreu. Right here, there's no luigos. Luigos atreu means I cannot claim the money from him. I don't have to claim it from him. I don't even have to go to him because I don't have to collect it from him. They're already in my hands. So if there's no luigos atreu, so therefore the shemitah does not cancel it out as well. Shemitah cancels if I have to go to a guy and tell him, give me the fruit. But if I don't have to go and tell him that, so shemitah doesn't cancel it. If you want to retract it, you cannot retract. That's a balabait b'kohen. But if it's going to be the kohen and the balabait, if you do want to retract, you could retract. Right? The Tanam, we learned in the Mishnah, Natan lo ma'ot velo mashach emenu perot. What happens if he gave him money, but he didn't do him any mishicha? You could retract. Which means giving money is still nothing without the kinyan mishicha. Meaning, I'm going to give you money. As long as you don't know a kinyan with it, it's still nothing. Because the giving of the money is still not, right, is still not there. What happens now if they give up hope? Why? It got flooded in. So therefore, what do we say? You can't take off anymore because you basically gave up hope on it. So pshita, obviously, and so the Gemara Lutzicha we're dealing with, the aku, right? What does that mean? You made a kinyan. The aku means it already started growing the next group. So Mao the time I would have thought to say akanta miltahi, that right now after the tzmicha, right, of the tvua, right, it's going to be something chashuv, and therefore it's not considered kalkel legamre. Kamash malan, it's going to be considered, right, that it's not going to be good. So Tanya we learned in the Braita, Yaakov says, Hamalve ma'ot takwem v'talaviv v'din. What happens if they lent the money in a bedin? Umetu, and then they died. Mafrish alem echizkat uto shevet. They could come and they could do it for that shevet, for the entire shevet of Kohanim or Levim and everything. Ve'atanim v'din umet, v'shbechizkal yisrael. Rabbi Yachai says, v'chizkat aniyeh olam. We're doing it for all the alim in the entire world. So what's the difference then? What's the difference between all these things? Lamed amud bet. The difference is going to be aniyeh of the kutim, not of the Jews. Because according to him, the kutim are considered like goyim 100%, and therefore they don't have the zechut maaser ani. But according to Rabbi Acha, right, it is ani olam. That means it could go to them. Okay. Next, ani, right? What happens now if the poor person becomes rich? So they cannot separate. He's going to be zocheh with that which he has in his hands. For Rabbanan, and according to the rabbis, right? Why is it that if a person dies, they made a takana in order to get the money back? But when a person becomes rich, they didn't make such a takana. And so the Gemara mita shchicha. death is common. Ashirut lo shchicha. To become rich is not common. Right? We don't want to burst a lot of people's bubbles. Right? Becoming rich is not common. Death is common. Rav Papa says, that's what people say. Chavrach mit asher itasher lo tasher. That means if somebody comes and says your friend, a person's friend died, believe him. But if he said your person's friend became rich, don't believe him. Right? Which means that it's just much more common. Met tzarich litol reshut. So he said that if the person dies, you have to take permission from the inheritors. Tanya Rabbi says Yorshin Yarshu. When it says the word Yorshin, right, that you have to take permission from them, it's tafka that they inherited it. So says the Gemara, Umika Yorshin lo yarte. Does there exist inheritors that don't inherit? What does that mean? So he says, right? Rabbi Yochanan says Rabbi Yochanan, Yarshu karka velu yarshu ksafim. The Gemara is that tafka that they inherited land, but not money. Because if they inherited land, so the karka, the land, is a lien to this debt. So for since it's less, therefore they have to actually give permission and everything. But if they only had money, right? So then it's not meshubad. So therefore it comes out that there's no chov anymore. And if there's no chov, so you can't collect anymore. Meaning, imagine right now there's no field. If there's no field, by the way, life insurance, it could be tzmetaltel. It's not land. So even the guy could have inherited, right, $1 million of life insurance, and it doesn't matter. It's still not subjugated to the loan. The second that the guy died, Kaddish, there's nothing left. Amar Rabbi Yonatan comes and he says, Heniach melomachat, right? What happens right now? The Kohen Levi, they left over melomachat. A shiur katan, a very small shiur. Gove melomachat. So he's going to collect, right, that shiur. Melo kardom, right? It was a bigger shiur. Gove melo kardom. Rabbi Yochanan says, even if you did leave a melomachat, gove melo kardom. You're going to collect melo kardom. And just like the story of Abaye, okay, which is the Masechet Shaya, which is basically talking about a small field, right, that it wasn't even worth half of the debt. And then what happened is the Elmaleh came and he took it from the Yatomim for half the debt. And then again, the Yatomim came and took it and says, Abaye, now you could take it again for the rest of it. You know, so what happened? The field was worth, let's say, $100. He was obligated to pay him $200. So what happened was the guy died. He went and he took the field of $100. The Yatomim came and they said, okay, fine, here. They gave the $100. So he says, okay, says Rabbi, take it back again, because he still owes you the other half. So again, he takes it back. You understand? Because he took back again the field, because that's what he owed him. Tanu Rabbanan, we learned in the Braita. Yisrael shama leLevi, and Yisrael tells the Levi, Maaser yesh lecha biyadi. I've got Maaser in your hands. We're not going to suspect to too much Maaser shabo. Kur Maaser shecha biyadi, but if he says a kur of Maaser, then we do suspect, because that's like nefach, that's volume. Then we do suspect for it. Okay, this is to do with Maaser Rishon in the hands of the Baal Bayit. It means we're not going to suspect that there's Tumat Maaser Shabo. Says the Gemara, what does that mean? Amai Kama. Amar Abaye says, this is what it means to say. Yisrael, Shamal Levi, Yisrael that tells the Levi, Maaser Yeshecha Biyadi ve'elach tamav. This is Maaser and here's the money, which means he wants to sell him the Maaser. So the Levi takes the money of the Maaser. Now the Yisrael is allowed to eat the Maaser, right? After he's going to separate the Truma Maaser to the Kohen. And we're not going to suspect Shasaul Truma Maaser Mekum Acher, they mean Truma Maaser in someplace else, right? That means because if the Levi did do that, so then it's going to be prohibited, right, to Zarim. So Kur Maaser Yeshecha Biyadi. If the Kur Maaser Yeshecha Biyadi, and here's the money. Maybe he did make it Truma Maaser on another place, on a Tachakurim that he has in his house, and therefore it's a sul for the Lokeach to eat it. Right? Everyone understood? One more time. I come and I'm going to go to you. You're the Levi. I come and I say, here, this is Maaser Rishon, right? But you know what? Here's $100. I want to buy it. You're going to say, okay, fine. So now what happens? I'm allowed to eat it. Right? And what? I just separated Tuma Maaser, but that's it. I'm not going to suspect that the Levi came and he made more Tuma Maaser on this. Right? That he said, I use one more Maaser. He's going to take the Tuma Maaser and say, I have to give it to the Kohen. So therefore, I'm allowed to eat it. What happens if it's a big amount? If it's a big amount, I'm going to suspect that the Levi said, you know what? I have here more food. Instead of taking Truma Maaser here, I know that this guy's going to bring me a whole bunch of Maaser. The Truma Maaser is going to be on there. So now it comes out that even when I buy it from him, I cannot eat it. Because there's Truma Maaser there that he separated from another place, and therefore I cannot eat from that Trumat Maaser. So ask the Gemara, Atu b'reshia askina. We talking about reshaim? Teshaklu dame u'mishavu mashu le'truma maaser. That they're taking the money and then they're making it trumat maaser. Does that make sense? We're talking about reshaim. He's taking the money. The Levi is taking the money, and then he's going to come and he's going to say, you know what, right? I'm going to make it trumat maaser in order to get this guy like into problems. But rather, Masechta Gittin says, "Haki kamar." This is what it means to say. He says, "Shama leben Levi." He says that tells the son of the Levi, "Maaseh lavicha b'yadi." The maaseh of your father is in my hands. Hey, here's the money. For she, and we're not going to suspect Shema Sawaviv Truma Maaseh Lemakom Acher, right? But if it's going to be Kur Maaseh lavicha b'yadi, and here's the money, we're going to suspect Shema Sawaviv Truma Maaseh, Maaseh Lemakom Acher. So says the Gemara, "V'chi nechshedu chaverim v'trom shelom min mukav." Are you going to come and you're going to suspect from Talmidei Chachamim to start giving truma from something which is not min mukaf, which is not going to be from there? Friends, the difference in this case that we're not going to answer Atu b'reshia askin and we did into the shame. The reason is because here the father didn't take any money, right? Which means the father didn't take money for the maaser. He just thought that he took it for himself. So because of that, we're not. So the Gemara asks, are we going to suspect that Talmidei Chachamim are going to come and they're going to be torem? Right? It's dafka mina mukaf, not no mina mukaf, which means usually when you're going to be torem from teguah, it has to be in the same place, right? Why? Because you're not going to start taking off truma for something that you can't see. Maybe it's already gone. Maybe it's destroyed. Maybe it's whatever. So answers the Gemara, we're almost done. Ravashi says, "Hachi kamar." This is what it means to say. Ben Yisrael Shema Levi, Ben Yisrael that tells a Levi, "Kach amar li Abba." This is what the father said before his death, right? Maaser lecha b'yadi. Here's the maaser. O Maaser lavicha b'yadi, the maaser of your father is in my hand, right? And he wants to give the maaser to the Levi. So shilin truma maaser, we're going to suspect for truma maaser in it. Given the lokaitz, right? Because since there's not a kamut exactly, right? He didn't say lovim tekel balabait, so therefore the balabait was not going to be metaken with this. Kul maaser yesh b'yadi or kul v'yasivicha en chushul maaser. We're not going to suspect for this thing because he's going to be somech on the cheskat chaver of the balabait that for sure he fixed it before he died. Given the keys, because since it's a fixed amount. Takun and Tekinu Balabait, for sure the Balabait already fixed it before and he gave the exact amount for the Tumat Maaser. Remember, the Tumat Maaser goes to the Kohen. Okay? So says the Gemara, can the Balabait give Tumat Maaser? Who gives the Tumat Maaser? The Levi. The Balabait gives the 10% to the Levi. And the Levi gives Maaser Mina Maaser or Tumat Maaser to the Kohen. So since when does the Balabait give the Tumat Maaser? So answers the Gemara, yes, he can give it. Abba Ben Gamla, this is the Shita of Elazar Ben Gamla. The Tanya was learned in a Braita. Elazar Ben Gamla Omer, V'nechshav lachem trumatchem kadaga min hagorim. What does that mean, trumatchem? The truma from the Leviim min maaser should be like the truma gdola. What does that mean? Ishteh lamed aleph amud aleph on the top. Ishteh trumot hakatuv medaber. We're talking about two different trumot. Achat truma gdola v'achat truma maaser. One of them is truma gdola, one of them is truma maaser. Keshem truma gdola nitele be'omed u'machshava. Just like truma gdola is going to be given be'omed u'machshava, which means like with not the exact measurements, right? There's no shiur min Torah, right? That's truma gdola. Remember, truma gdola is the first thing that you give. Okay, that's the first thing that you're giving is that. Okay, so he says over here, the truma gdola, he comes and he says, which is going to be 1/50th, right? If he wants to do it 1/40th or whatever it is, so he comes and he says, trumat maaser, so to truma maaser nitel be'omer u'machshava. So this is the shita of Abba Gamla that you're allowed to give truma maaser, meaning the balabait could give the truma maaser and not anyone else. Have a wonderful day.